services. It's about dignity, choice, and feeling heard every day. Welcome to The Caring View, the podcast where we elevate, educate, and celebrate social care. This year, we're going back to basics, giving managers and their teams the foundations to succeed. Listen, learn, because when leaders listen, learn, and lead, their teams thrive. And when teams thrive, people who use services feel supported, valued, and truly heard. Practical conversations, real tools, better lives. This is The Caring View. Good evening, and welcome to The Caring View, the online health and social care platform free to access to absolutely everybody. This is our first show of 2026, so bear with us whilst we get settled back into these seats and we learn again about what we're doing. But we are free, completely free, and we've got some big things coming this year for you as well. The only reason we can offer The Caring View for free is due to the generous support of our sponsors. Without further ado, we have got Prosperwell, the UK's leading digital marketing agency. If you miss any of the websites from these sponsors as we go through them, catch up on our website, rewatch the episode, you can find them all there. We have CBAT, Care Business Associates training for all of your healthcare training requirements. Really great training through CBAT, including CHAPS, train the trainer courses, clinical, non-clinical, high performance leadership, you name it, they've got it. And they are responsive. They are great. We use them within our services. We have Attis Care by Attis Insurance Brokers for intensive care coverage and proactive risk management. And some of what we're going to discuss in tonight's show around action plans will actually support you when sourcing out new insurance as well. So really important that you consider when you're doing your action plans, all things insurance, and Attis Care are there to guide you through that. We have Log My Care, the intuitive care management platform loved by complex care providers, ever evolving, ever changing, ever improving. And they do have a freemium version that you can try before you buy. Our website is powered by Jack AI, and they are all part of the umbrella of Jack White's companies, Health Automated Online and Enlightenment Online, AI-powered, so AI-powered care planning, AI-powered training. We have got directly connecting healthcare professionals with shifts and training all around the country. Great alternative traditional agencies. And last but not least, and forgive me, I cannot find it again, we have got Every Step Care Consultancy, powerful by Nicola Holmes, there to guide you through your poor inspection ratings. You want to do a bit of a turnaround, you need a bit of guidance on where to go as a business, as a care business. Every Step Care Consultancy is there to guide you. Good evening, Mark. How are you?
Good evening. Yeah, not too bad, thank you. You?
I'm good, thank you very much. I'm good. I'm looking forward to this. It's so for, you know, if you're new to us, you will think, oh, normal intro, but actually brand new intro, brand new year. This is our 5th year of doing The Caring View. This is series 6 of The Caring View. And Mark, we're going back to basics. We're doing something a little different this year.
We are indeed. So I think the last couple of years has been really good. I think we've had so many amazing guests on the show, but I think the ones that have really, managers, directors, people just coming into social care in general, are just those basic conversations. The weeks are things that you just take for granted when you're in a management role, or that you feel like you're expected to know. So things like action planning, which we're going to talk to tonight, actually go back to kind of the basics of what it is, why we should be doing it, remove the faff around, are we doing it because a regulator says we should be doing it? Are we doing it because we've read somewhere in a CQC report that a provider got outstanding or requires development for not having it? And yeah, just really kind of understand what it is that we're trying to achieve for our teams and our services.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think what we're going to see this year is increased rates again for care providers. So less money floating around for us to spend on other things. And actually, one thing we need to invest more in is the development of ourselves, but also our teams. And I think The Caring View, rightly so, for the last few years has been very much focused on that high level management, that high level leadership. Whereas what we want to do this year is deliver you something that you can sit here on a Tuesday night and watch and go, ooh, wasn't that interesting? But then also go, actually, my teams are really going to benefit from this. So I'm going to use this to help support my team. I'm going to use this to help develop my team. It's not just going to be me and Mark every single week preaching, thinking we know everything. We are going to have real expert guests joining us as we normally do. And the biggest change we're going to find is that we're not going to do this weekly. We are doing this fortnightly, for the time being. I say for the time being because you know what we're like. We get booked up and we have loads of conversations to have. But as it stands at the minute, we are going to go live every other week. So what that means is the week we are not live, we are going to be pushing you as many free resources based on the previous week's episode as possible. We've already got a couple of resources available for you from tonight's show, and we're going to develop some over the next week for you to be able to utilize fortnightly at this moment in time. So now, more than ever, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You will get notified every single time that we set up a new live episode. You'll know when we're going live, or follow us on one of us because we do broadcast across those as well. I also think there's going to be less free resources. I've spent the afternoon today for my sins reviewing 8 CQC reports from recent CQC inspections, assessments, CQC assessments. I've only been reviewing those that are inadequate or requires improvement because I want to see what's being picked up. I want to see what those big themes and trends are. And one of the big themes and trends we've got from that is that continual learning for managers, but also the development of teams, sharing of outcomes, sharing of learning practices. And all of that's really, really important. So again, I'm not saying you have to use the caring view, but if this is another avenue for you to be able to go, well, actually, this is furthering our knowledge. This is how we're gaining further insights into the sector. So be it. It's a no-brainer. It's completely free. Never going to charge you. No hidden fees, no hidden anything. But yes, back to basics. Tonight is all around action plans and action planning. This is something that is a passion. I love an action. I don't love it when action plans don't get completed. I don't love it when actions don't work. I don't love it when we can't embed stuff. So some of the things we want to discuss tonight, and we are going to put together a bit of a cheat sheet for you. We have got some resources, like I say, we will show you throughout tonight's show. But some of the things is how do we write SMART actions? And we'll get into that acronym shortly. Most of you will probably know what the acronym SMART stands for. How do we monitor actions and action plans as a whole without feeling like we're micromanaging our teams? We want our teams to be able to work through action plans, but how do we keep an eye on those actions without micromanaging our teams? How do we embed those actions into everyday practice? How do we validate that an action is truly complete? There's many a times where we've got, oh, that's complete, tick that off. But actually, how are we measuring that? And what evidence have we got to support the completion of that action? And how do we keep actions alive after completion? How do you get your team fully involved in the action plan process from inception to completion? And effective action plans, how can they reduce pressure on us as managers, on your teams as managers? So Mark, I think, should we go straight into it and start discussing SMART actions?
Yes, I think we should. Where do you want to start off? I think we should start with what SMART stands for, just so that, just in case there is anybody new to social care, new managers that have joined the... So SMART is they're specific, they're measurable, they're action-led, they're realistic, time-bound. And there is an O on some of them. So even though you've got SMART, a lot of people do put an O, which is owned, because I think it's important that an action is delegated to somebody who holds responsibility for that.
Yeah, no, totally. I think for the purpose of tonight and the documents we've got provided for you, the version of the acronym we're using is specific, measurable, achievable. How do we achieve an action? Relevance. How many times have you been asked to do something and you don't know why you need to do it? Oh, can you do that for me? Yeah, but why? Like, why? And then that time bound. I like that though, that ownership. That brings accountability plan template that way. Spoiler, but the action plan available from our website as well. So let's kick off with some of the basics. An action isn't a desirable. It's not a wish. It's not something that we want. It is a clear instruction for change. The reason we've got an action is because we've identified something that needs improving, it needs changing, it needs to be better. And to achieve those actions, we do need to make our actions smart. So if we start with specifics, we want to make sure that whatever action we create is specific. So I could say, I need a poster being put up, and that's my action. But you, who's received that action, probably don't know what I'm talking about. What is that specific poster that you need me to put up? Where do I need to put it? For starters, oh well, it's a hand hygiene poster. Hand hygiene poster. Put the hand hygiene poster up. And I come into the building the next day, and actually the hand hygiene poster is, I don't know, out by the bins and none in the bathrooms or at any hand washing stations. And remember, why is it not at the hand washing stations? Well, you never told me where to put it. It's about that specificness around our actions. So, for example, another example of a weak action would be improved care planning. Okay, but what is it that I need to improve in that care planning? Whereas if I said review and update all care plans to ensure they reflect people's individual choices, preferences, and risks, that gives whoever needs to action that action the specifics around what that action is. So making sure your actions are specific is a great starting point. Without that specificity, even if you know when it needs to be done by, you're most likely going to be disappointed that an action has not been completed. Now, if we're in a room of people, I'd be saying, put your hands up. How hours do you think you've spent following up actions? That's not been done the way I want it. I need it being done a different way. Chasing people up. That's not been done right. That's not been done right. If we get it right at the start and we make those actions specific at the start, we're going to waste a lot less time later on down the line to chasing these actions. And actually, we've got more time to embed them, more time to evidence them. Mark, anything you think I've missed there?
Not that I can think of. Just going back a step, I just wrote something you were talking about earlier, is the why, because I think when you're making action plans, before you even begin, it's really important to understand the why and what you want to achieve. From I wrote down, which I think I'll probably forget if I don't say now, is that when you're creating an action, there could be multiple actions within that action, which I think when you're talking about, whether it's specific or not, actually you need to think about what it is. And sometimes actually you probably want to just document all of those actions instead of one big vague one.
And that's something we've experienced recently within my service, because there's a drive to actually not want these action plans to be too big. The more you condense them, the harder it is to track those actions, and the harder it is to actually be specific to a point. Otherwise, you end up with an action that's like 3 paragraphs long, and bit, but not that bit, and not that. This is the start of the action. However, once that's completed, this is the next step, and maybe you need to 2-step it. We're not to do them as long as you've got somewhere where your teams have access to them. What we've got to share with you tonight is a spreadsheet version of an action plan. Use it, don't really care. It's just there to guide you in creating a smart action plan. Once we've been specific and we've told people exactly what it is that we're needing, we need to be measurable. And when we mean measurable, we want to be able to see that it's been done. If we cannot see that it's been done, then we cannot evidence it. And if we cannot evidence it, there is nothing we can prove to say we've resolved this situation. So we need to be able to manage it, to measure it. So, for example, staff to understand MCAs. We need the staff to understand MCAs. I'm sure that's something that is common in a lot of services. The reports that I've been reading today, quite a lot is focused on lack of knowledge around mental capacity assessments, best interest, DOLS, to understand mental capacity assessments, the Mental Capacity Act, DOLS, best interests. But that understand MCA, I want to make sure that 100% of my team have completed and passed MCA, DOLS, best interest training. Great, good, measurable. An additional onto that would be backed up by competency assessments. The other thing that the regulators are mad on at the moment is competency assessments. It's fine to sit and do a training session, but actually, how are you measuring that training? And that's that word measure. Action plans, making sure you know how you're going to know when it's completed. So your team, the person who's completed that action, knows how it will be and when it will be completed. But also measurables around training. Just throwing that in there. How are you measuring how impactful your training's been? I could sit and do 15 training sessions in one night. How much have I really retained, and how are you going to measure that for me? So just be thinking around that. And that creates that accountability without blame. Mark, anything?
Yeah, and I think you've covered the majority. I think the only thing for me is when I'm thinking about something that's measurable, it's about how will I know this has been done? So what we've got to remember is that actually you're going to delegate some of these responsibilities to your staff team, to somebody else, and actually how are you going to know? How are they going to know it's been done? And I think you spoke around percentages and bits and pieces, and I think that's that ball. amount, the frequency, the volume that's attached to an action. I think you need everybody to understand what done looks like. What is that end result that we are going to be able to achieve? And I think the one you use there around, we want staff to understand mental capacity that's very vague. Actually, want 100% staff taking a refresher training and can demonstrate the knowledge that they've learned from that. That's your measurable. That's how you know that staff have done it. And obviously, you spoke there around competency assessments, and absolutely right that I think there's more and more emphasis these days on competencies, probably more so than on the actual training these days.
Oh no, 100%. I think not that training's slipping away from us, but those competency assessments are really the main focus of the regulator at this present moment. Specific, we know what it is we need to do. We know how we'll know when it's done, but when do I need it done by? And this is where most action plans fail, because I want 100% of my team to have completed MCA's, MCA interest training and DOLS training. I want it done by tomorrow. Is it achievable? Is that manageable? Is that something that you're actually going to be able to do? Likelihood, probably not. You've already set yourself up to fail. What you'll find is you're constantly moving the due dates of your actions. And the more you move the due dates of your actions, the less important they actually become. And it becomes more of a habit that you're shifting the goalposts. So you want to make things achievable in what you're doing. And this could also be you're assigning a task to somebody. I'm going to use a poster example again. I need you to print a poster for me. That's absolutely fine, but you've not given me the poster. And actually, I don't have access to a printer. And you want it laminating. We've got no laminating pouches. What do I do? So instantly, that action is not achievable because the resources they need to achieve that action aren't there. So making things achievable is more important for me than anything else, because you can get all the other steps right. All of the other steps could be perfect. If you do not make them achievable, you are going to fail. That's going to impact morale. Your team morale is going to absolutely die of achieving this. I can't do this. This more often happens when you've had an assessment by the CQC or local authority or the ICB, and they give you a massive long report of loads of areas where you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And you go, great, we're going to have to put an action plan together. And you put like a 40, 50 point action plan together and everything's going to be done. Is it achievable? Is it achievable? Because the majority of those actions will probably be landing with yourself or your other management team or senior members of your team. Are they going to be able to achieve all of those actions within a 3-month period? Probably not. That's when risk rating comes in. Risk rating isn't part of the SMART acronym, but we can think about that when we think about your measurables, when we think about relevance, when we think about achievable. So making sure you've got a good place so that actually you can go, this does need to be done 5 months' time. This needs to be done immediately. This is critical. This is high. This is
the only thing from a operational about the poster example, for example, actually, is the person you're delegating it to, do they have time to do it? Have they had the training to be able to do it? Have they got access, to the systems to be able to do it? Even delegated authority to make those changes? Because there's no point in, assigning an action to your deputy manager, for example, but then expecting sign off to be from a senior leadership team. And I think time in general to be able to do something, because say it's, they need to implement a new audit, that's the action. Actually, do they have the time? Do the team have capacity to be able to do that? Because again, there's no point in setting something that that your team are not going to be able to deliver on. And especially if it's in an action plan and the CQC or the local authority during a PAMS inspection says, well, what about this action? Why is this one not being done? They're not going to be like, oh yeah, because your team hasn't had time or you've not had the resource. There'll be a failure on the service and as you as a manager for not making sure those things are implemented. So just definitely kind of think about what it is that you need or that your team member needs to be able to achieve those actions.
And that's a really great example as well. Brand new audit. We're going to do this audit and this is what we're going to do. You need to do this audit. Do your team have the skills to complete audits? If you're failing on governance in your CQC inspections because audits aren't identifying what you need them to identify, but you think all the questions are actually really correct and will identify everything you need to, maybe it's not the audit, maybe it's the skill of your team. And we don't want to have that blame culture. And what we want to think is, right, what barriers have my team got? So implement this audit once you've undergone an audit masterclass, for example. Or the first action, if we talked about those cascading actions, might be to support the team with understanding how to complete an effective audit for IPC, for example. Then it could be implement the audit, because then you've got a good process of implementing something new within your service. Next up is relevance. I love relevance. I use relevance all the time in my actions, and I'm teaching my team tricks around these relevant little tidbits we can put in. And one of my favorite things around relevance for me when I'm writing actions is if I'm creating action that is urgent for me and I know is urgent and we need to get done, and I send it to another part of the team and it doesn't get done, I know they probably don't see it as urgent as I'm seeing it as urgent, and they need to have the understanding of why the action is high priority. So sometimes I will oh, sorry, Jonathan Smith on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a right nasty little thing for us when we're streaming. Jonathan on LinkedIn is saying that we've had some video lags. We do apologize, Jonathan. I'm hoping this all records okay, and it should be available on catch up. We're going to convert it to audio as well and add it back. Hello, Tina. Hello, Pete. Yes, great to see you all. We are back. It's been a bit of a break for us, but we are back and we are here talking action plans. So relevance. One thing that I like to do in my actions is link it to the regulations. So this is a high priority action because it directly impacts regulation 12 or regulation 15. I need all the doors to be checked for compliant gaps around fire safety, for example. This is to meet regulation 12, regulation 15. You've automatically linked it to those regulations, so actually the relevance is there. And I think it's really, really important that people understand the relevance around that. So every action should, and it could be around people. It could be around people who use your service. So making sure you link it to people who use your service, the quality of care, safety, regulatory compliance, like I've just said. It's just making sure that that relevance is there in those actions. Mark, anything around relevance?
No, you literally, I was just writing down quality of care, safety, and you stole it from me. No, I think the only thing is, think about that action. You know, if it's training compliance that you need to improve, creating a poster as an action isn't going to do it. Actually sending, the action might be to send a weekly training compliance reminder until, you hit a certain percentage. If your issue is around improving communication, introducing a new form as your action probably isn't going to cut it, whereas an action around holding monthly team meetings to communicate key updates probably is something. So try and think, outside of the box. I think social care, we love a form. We love, quick email, actions aren't there to be done and ticked off really quickly. You want to embed real change into it. So think about what you can actually do. Speak to your staff team, when you're setting these actions, when you know that something needs to improve, because they'll be the ones to tell you how you can do it. And that's what can inform that action.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely, 100% agree. After relevance, we have time bound, and this, in part directly links to achievable. But if you create all of this wonderful action plan and then don't give yourself a deadline of when you need to do it by, you're not going to get it done. With all the goodwill in the world, you're not going to get it done. I know you're going to sit there and go, no, it's fine because I'm really good and I don't need deadlines and I can detect. You're not going to get it done because your team aren't going to get it done. Unless you tell me you need something being done by a certain time, I probably won't get it done. I like a deadline. Everyone needs a deadline. Actions need a deadline. That could be by a date. It could be within a period of time, so 2, 3, 4 weeks, or it could be an ongoing action. So this is reviewed monthly. So it could be ongoing, reviewed monthly, and then you would add your monthly reviews onto that action plan so that you can evidence that you're measuring that on a monthly basis. But your time aspect, that completion, has to be directly linked to, is this achievable? Is the time that I'm giving ourselves to do this action achievable? Mark, anything on, it's quite straightforward time bound, but anything on time bound?
Yeah, I think the only thing for me is around, if it's the very first action plan you're putting together, it's easy to be able to kind of put them in a priority order that you think that they need to be achieved by. If you've got a rolling action plan, and that's obviously slightly harder because it'll all be coming kind of in on that document. I think the only thing to think about when you're setting kind of those timescales is around thinking about when your senior leadership team might be wanting something, when commissioners might be walking through the door. Do you have an audit that's going to come up from your quality team, for example? Just because you can kind of then piece them around what you've got coming in externally to make sure that obviously you're ticking the boxes But you are right. I think we all need deadlines to make sure that we're doing bits and pieces and keep us on track.
Definitely. And we're not going to delve specifically into this, but actions aren't just actions that we create. Actions can come from audits, they can come from learning outcomes, they can come from incidents. So it's about keeping track of all of that as well. So you're going to have multiple different actions. I mean, we're quite snazzy where we are at the minute. We have a digital governance system, and all our actions are in one action plan, and we can tag them and differentiate between them and pull out different parts of the action plan that we need to and see them all as a whole if we want to, which is great. If you're going to go onto paper and have paper action plans, fully recommend that you have a folder for all of your action plans. And again, use notes, use post-its. How are you rag rating that? How are you keeping a track on that? And we'll go into how we monitor and manage them later on. But I think one of the most important things to understand around actions is whenever you write an action, no matter how short it is, it must contain or at least answer the following 5 questions. So what needs to happen? Why does it matter? Who is responsible? By when? And how will this be measured? How will progress be measured? And the one thing that I always say to my team and other people that I work with is, if you're writing an action and you put yourself in the shoes of the person you're sending that action to, can you, from that, understand what needs to happen, why it needs to happen, who is responsible, when does it need to be completed by, and how is it going to be measured? Because if not, if you can't answer all of those questions, take a moment of reflection, rewrite it. It's going to save you time in the long run with people coming to you going, I don't really understand this action you've sent me. It's taking up time. Time is precious. Eisenhower matrix, anybody who has studied time management, Eisenhower matrix, for example, time is incredibly precious. So making sure your actions answer each of those questions, super, super important. I think, Mark, we're safe to move over from smart actions. We're quite ambitious. We've got a lot that we want to get through in an hour. And I don't know, this is our first time doing the back to basics, and we're probably a bit ambitious of what we want to try and fit in. So do you reckon we're okay to move over to monitoring without micromanaging?
I think so, yes.
Perfect. Over to you, or do you want me to take lead?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about micromanagement, or how we, make sure that we're monitoring without micromanagement. And I think we've both spoken,
very, very quickly. I will be bringing up comments throughout tonight's show. We're probably not going to have too much time to stop and reflect on them, but I want to bring them up because people are sharing some really good content in the comments as well. So I'm just going to bring them up as we're talking, Mark.
You sure? Or we can go to the comments now?
No. I'll just bring them up as we're talking, unless there's something that we want to hit on.
Okay, yeah. No, so I think I was just saying that I think we've both spoken about, the importance of delegating. I think as a manager, it's one thing that you really need to learn how to do. And I think for me, when we think about you've got an action, it's not about chasing people. It's not about policing staff. It's not about setting somebody an action and then using that as a performance, plan because they haven't done it for whatever reason. I think, earlier when I spoke about, you need to make sure your staff have got the tools to be able to do that. Actually, within that action they're doing, give them clear deadlines. When will you check their progress? What will that checking look like? If it's something that needs embedding into the organization, actually, I want to be seeing these in team meetings. I want to see evidence of this in one-to-one discussions, in supervisions. If it's something that affects the wider organization, I want to see these in kind of quality meetings, in governance meetings. You want to see them in audits that have been reviewed. So I think there's many ways that you can set the kind of tone of how you want that change. And I think then you need to obviously make sure that you're doing that. So I think one of the easiest ways I find is setting myself a calendar reminder that a deadline is due on something, because then I can just go in and have a look. And then if it's not done, then you can obviously have that conversation with staff. But it just kind of presets that conversation that And I think if it has been done, it's about recognizing that, your staff member has done something, that they've done it well, what that looks like, the impact. And I think for me, when you're giving the positive, it's all around that impact of how that's made a difference. So whether that's to the staff team in general, whether that's to the organization, whether that's to the people you support, because I think sometimes it's more impactful than just saying, oh, you've done that action, thank you very much. Actually, if you know that action's made a significant increase into, training compliance, what does that then mean for the people you support, for each of you within that team? Anything from you, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, all of that I totally agree with. I totally agree with all of that. I think it's really important to understand that the more we learn about leadership and management and good leadership and good management and good team building, and we move away from that blame culture, it's important to understand that when we're monitoring action plan progress, it's not about policing our teams, it's not about chasing them, it's not about beating them down. It's really, really important that people understand this is about chasing outcomes. This is about chasing improvement. It's about monitoring outcomes. It's about monitoring improvement. And all of those suggestions around how you're going to monitor the mark, I think, is a really great idea, whether that is team meetings, one-to-ones. One thing I do quite like, especially if you've got loads of actions, big important actions, is weekly action plan meetings. Get your team involved in that. And that is, for me, it's really important that if I've got an action that's due and it's due in a month's time, I am not going to wait until that deadline to go, action's not done. Why is it not done? Because there may be issues, there may be barriers, there may be problems that team member's facing to actually work through that action. So if you have regular action plan meetings and you can go, right, look, 3 weeks until this action's due, where are we at? What updates have we got? What progress have we made? Have we got any barriers? Have we got any issues that we're facing in completing this action? Is it still achievable for us? Because again, things happen, things change. Is this going to be possible for us? So understanding that to monitor it isn't, again, micromanaging. It's not chasing people. It is literally just there to get to where we need to be. So questions to ask, not is it done? Have you done it? Have you completed it? But what's going well so far? You know, what are we achieving? What's happening at the minute? What's going well? What's getting in the way? I've just spoken about barriers. So actually, what's stopping us from achieving this action and the outcomes that we need from this action at the minute? And most importantly, what support do you need? There is nothing worse than facing an action that you're thinking to yourself, I don't know whether I can do this. Like I'm really struggling. I've got too much on. I've got this happening. I don't really understand what it is that I need to do now. I've done this bit and I get that it's specific. I totally do. But I think I've got a knowledge gap. Your action's written beautifully. It's very smart. It's very smart. But actually, I've got a bit of a knowledge gap that I need support on. So that moves away from that blame culture and actually takes us into that problem solving area. And if we can lead like that, then our teams who are who have oversight of their own action plans and their own teams to monitor and manage those action plans will hopefully take that skill set away and deliver it. The other really important thing about having those regular catch-ups on your action plan and including updates. So even if an action's not been completed, asking your team to pop updates on. So let's go back. I want 100% of team members trained in MCAs and competency assessments done. Fine. Deadline's 2 months' time. Perfect. Don't tell me in 2 months' time that it's all been complete. Put an update on that action plan for me so that actually when we come to review it, I might not need to even ask you the questions because you've put the updates there. And I think that's really, really important to show that continual progress, especially if I was to come in and assess a service and I go, right, show me your action plans. This hasn't been achieved yet. No, it hasn't, but look at the progress we've made. And I can see all that progress because you've got your updates, time, date stamped in that action plan. Absolutely perfect. But it also makes it easier, like I say, to monitor where those actions are. And then communicate it to your team. So don't just sit on that like a golden egg and go, oh, I have control of the action plans. Let your team know about them. Let your team know where we're at on achieving them. If it relates directly to them, keep them updated. If you've got team, I know one of my teams talk through actions as part of their daily flash meetings. So once they've got everything out of the way, they'll go, right, what actions have we got coming up this week? How are we working on them? Have we got any progress? Have we got any issues? Have we got any barriers? And keeping them involved at all times. We're going to get into involving the teams on, but making sure that people are aware of what actions that we've got. Tina, I'm going to share this link and we'll try and share it. Oh no, you put it in the chat anyway, so people should be able to access this. But compulsives and relationships micromanaging sounds interesting just from that link there. So yes, people, if you're interested in that, please go and have a look. Monitoring and measuring, Mark, as opposed to micromanaging. Anything that you think we need to add in there?
No, I really liked what you were talking there about the monitoring questions as opposed to kind of those hard-hitting kind of leading questions. I think for me is that when you're asking those monitoring questions, it's likely that your team will have found something else, which might then become another action. And that's absolutely fine, because you can then add that into your overall action plan. And I think when you're discussing your action plans with your team and kind of the progress, actually reassuring them that actually if there's something else that's coming out of this, then that's fine. Because again, it's changing the narrative that we're not doing an action for the sake of an action. We're doing this because we want to change something. We want to change the culture for the better within the organization. So actually if there's something that's coming out of it, that's absolutely fine.
It's like you were planning that segue, Mark, right into the next section, which is how we embed those actions into everyday practice. Because an action isn't just for Christmas, it's for life. The whole point of having an action, like we've said earlier, is to bring change. It's to bring positive outcomes that are long-standing. You do an audit, you identify that you're doing your daily walkarounds as a manager, which, by the way, of the 8 CQC reports that I reviewed this afternoon, daily walkarounds not happening in a lot of homes. Make sure you're doing them. But you do your daily walkaround as a manager, and day one, you go, ooh, PPE stations aren't filled. They need to be filled. Day two, you see them, ooh, PPE stations aren't filled. They need to be filled. Must create an action. You create an action. You put the action in place. Make sure all PPE stations are filled. The next day, you go, PPE stations are filled. Woohoo! Brilliant. Wonderful. They're done. Day 4, you go around. Ooh, PPE stations are empty. Must create an action. The telltale sign of poor action planning and poor embedding of actions is no sustained long-term improvement. If you create an action good once and implement it good once, you shouldn't need to implement it again, because you've created a culture and you've embedded it within your culture. That means embedding it into daily routines. It means setting expectations. It means creating that new culture. One of the ways that is really important to look at this, and Mark and I, we've spoken about this a lot, that we are all just people within an organization. If you weren't there, would it still happen? You might think that you're on top of it and everything's wonderful and everything's hunky-dory, but actually, are you doing the majority of this all the time? Or is your team chipping in? Because if your team aren't chipping in and you go on holiday for 2 weeks, are you assured that that stuff is still going to happen when you're not there? If the answer to that is no, you've not embedded the improvements that you need to improve. Don't beat yourself up. You dust yourself off and you go, right, we need to relook at this. We need to refocus. Mark, I'm going to hand over to you for a sec.
Yeah, there's not really too much on embedding it that I can think of. I think just kind of touching on what you've said, I think as a leader within your organization, you play a really focal part. There's going to be actions that you might not agree with. There's going to be something that, you know, you've got to change. That might have been something that you've implemented that you take personally, but as a leader, and it's really important if you're setting actions for somebody else that they are also aware that they're the voice of that change. They're the voice of implementing that. So even if you don't agree with it, on the inside, you might be able to talk about that with somebody that you completely trust at, you know, at a higher level. But to your wider team, you've got to sell that, why you're doing it, what the change is, what we're doing, why we're doing it. So I think that's really important that, you know, as part of that embedding it, you know, if you're not got buy-in, then your staff won't have buy-in either.
I totally agree. Now, not going to lie to you, Tina, the RAGB action plan's far superior for what we've got to share tonight. But again, it is just here as a template for people to be able to monitor and manage. Actually, it's there free on our website. I might go away and have a bit of a tinker around with it to monitor it, to make it a little bit more snazzier. But yes, the RAGB action plan test, really, really important. What we have got for you tonight, and I'm just going to share it very quickly, is just a very simple action plan template. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Very simple action plan template for you to be able to use. We've got some guidance in there on how to complete it, and then the actual action plan itself, just to try and make it that little easier for you to start tracking these actions. If you've already got fancy action plans that you use, perfect, run with them. You don't need to use this. This is really designed for people who actually we need to do something. We need to make sure that actually we're making progress. It's easy to use. We've got drop down menus already formatted for you, so you can highlight. You know, it's a medium, so actually we're on amber at the minute. It's critical. It's a darker red. It's high, so it's a high red. Bright red. It's low, so it's green. And if you move across, it allows you to put other stuff in here as well. So lessons learned, evidence and validation, embedding. How is this going to become embedded into our routines? Progress, putting some progress in here. Links to resources. This is another one which we don't talk about enough of, but actually, can you provide links to people to complete this action? Is the stuff out there that's going to be able to support them? How and when will this progress be checked? Action plan status, so we can tick here to say that it's completed, it's in progress, it's not started. If it's not started, then we're going, why is it not started? Completed, absolutely fab, that's great. Lessons learned, what learning outcomes have we had from going through this action? A space for you to pop your updates in. We need to reformat that because for some reason it's telling us on that, so we'll reformat for you, don't worry. But a space for you to pop those updates of where we're at on those actions. And then once that action is complete for that team member sign off, what this doesn't do is your continual observation of those things. That will come from me, from your audits, from checking and monitoring and measuring. It might be that you don't want to complete that action straight away. You want to have a look at your embedding plan about how you're going to embed it. But it's here just to remind you that actually there are things that we should be doing when creating our actions. It's not just a case of action, who, when, done, which most action plans tend to be. So it's always nice just to have something to refer to. Again, completely free. Edit it, manage it. We've not locked the spreadsheet, so you can mess around and you can change it yourselves. Totally fine with that. It is on our website at the minute, but we do obviously need to tweak a few little things on it, but we will get that in there as well. Yes, lessons learned, great to include. Again, of the 8 CQC reports that I reviewed this afternoon, not many had good evidence of showing what learning outcomes had been shared or what the learning culture was of the organization. So really, really important that we include those learning outcomes. Mark.
Yes, I love a lesson learned. And I think it's important to remember, that actually you can use that lesson learned as your team meeting. It doesn't have to be that generic, agenda of, are there any health and safety issues? Actually use something that's going to, benefit your service and drive that change forward. I think just going back to that action plan you shared, and one thing we haven't spoken around, which I did write down, was around brag rating, because I think actually for some staff, especially if you've got lots of actions, and even for yourself as a manager, actually as a visual, it just helps you centralize into actually where are we at very quickly. If you need to focus on some of those reds, then you can just dive straight into those red ones. You can filter it and use it. So no, really good tool there to use.
And Tina, do you know what? This is a faux pas on me because I have a fancy action plan system, which is all digital. It automatically links my actions to wherever they've been created, be it an assessment, be it an audit. And that's something that now, unfortunately, slipped from my peripheral. I will actually add that on. It's really, really important that we can track that. Because then you can monitor where the majority of your actions are coming from. Are they coming from audits? Are they coming from incidents? Are they coming from complaints? But then also you can just go, well, actually, this is linked to the PPE audit. So I know where this action has come from. Really, really important. My apologies for missing that off. I will add that in. So once we've made smart actions and we're monitoring them and we're working to embed them, how do we validate that an action is truly complete? Bearing in mind that complete does not always mean effective. And I said this earlier, 100% of team members to have MCA training. Fine, they're 100% trained. No. Is it effective? How do we know that that's actually effective? Cue the competency assessments, all of that sort of stuff. Really, really important. But validation, what does it mean? Has this action made a difference, and does it go beyond ticking that box? CQC are absolute sticklers for saying that we've all got tick box exercises. Audits can be tick box exercises. Action plans can be tick box exercises. Supervisions can be tick box exercises. How do we climb outside of that box? And how do we make sure that things are getting embedded? So it could be through audits, it could be through observations of practice, supervision notes, it could be from feedback from people who use your services. So it could be an action around meal times. We don't have a good variety of food. But there's not a good variety of food for us. You put an action plan in place, you're monitoring your menus, you're changing your menus, you're creating variety. Great, new menus are in place, different meals are there. But actually, I'm not going to complete that just yet, because although we've done that, I need to hear from the people who have given us cause to create this action. So I'm going to monitor that for 3-4 months, maybe less, maybe more. And I want to hear from the people who use my service. Has the variety improved? Has the variety changed? Yes, it has. Wonderful. That's great. Am I going to stop there? No, I'm not. Because actually, I'm going to make sure that this is something I'm going to review on a regular basis now throughout the year, because I don't want to slip back. I want to make sure that this huge, wonderful variety of food that we've now created for the people who use our services is maintained. Because what I don't want to do in a year's time is go, yeah, you've got loads of variety, but it doesn't change. It's not changing. It's the same stuff now. And again, we've lost that variety. So it's around making sure that wherever that action's come from, you're using similar methods to then validate whether that action's been completed. Smaller actions, rusty bin needs changing for a plastic bin. Simple action, very specific. Plastic bin is here, you need to use this. This is the reason why. Rust is dangerous, blah, 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 blah. Action plan completed. How do I know it's complete? Have I gone and checked it myself? My team members have just ticked it off to say that it's complete. It's really, really useful to take a photo, upload it, add it into your action plan. There you go. That's my proof that it has been completed. And then as a manager, doing spot checks on some of those actions that have been completed. So you've got your own validation as well. There is nothing worse than CQC walking through your door and going, can I have a look at these audits? Yeah, of course you can. Oh, look at all these actions. They're all complete. Great. Wonderful. Whew. However, when I've checked, it's not really complete, is it? Why didn't you know that as a manager? Okay, no. So doing your own validation checks, doing your own assurance checks will be hugely, hugely helpful. Mark?
Yes, I was just scribbling away, so I'm apologising now if there's any duplication. I just wrote down, I think, going back to the origin, what did you want to solve? Has that been solved or resolved? I think, confirming evidence, we've all lived by the mantra, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Exactly the same. If there's no evidence, you need to assume that it has not happened. Even in the back of your mind, it has. If it's not documented, you can bet your bottom dollar if the CQC walk through the door, they're going to say it's not happened. There's no point in being in your head. You spoke about, longevity and sustainability. Will it happen if it's not being prompted? I think it's worth checking, what changes happened. Is it in a process now? Is it something around new starters that you wanted to improve? Is it in their induction? Is it in an audit tool? Have you embedded it into a supervision? And I think then just in, just evidence of the impact. And I think, we heard earlier around, those case studies and bits and pieces. I think actually, once you've got a really good audit and the positive impact that's come from it, you can then utilize that to then have that case study. But I think the biggest thing, like you said, Adam, is that going to continue after you've left? And obviously involving the people that, use your services and the people that, are in your teams, talk to them. And I think it's also around, if it's around training, because we spoke about that earlier, or if it's around complaints or instances, actually reviewing what the data is telling you. Has those stats gone up? Have complaints gone down? Do people feel better? Utilize staff feedback, the feedback from the people you support, the relatives.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. 100% agree. Pete, I've got your question up only because, yes, 100% that. 100% that. Getting copies of those records, having a look at those records, reviewing those records. Of the 8 CQC reports I reviewed earlier on today, a lot of them were stating that activities weren't person-centered, there wasn't a variety, there wasn't a good mix of activities. So if I was part of one of those homes that had been reviewed, I'd be going, right, action. We need to make sure that people have got person-centered activities, they've got access to them, life enrichment, life and blah, 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 blah. I'm going to monitor that through my care records, and I'll be able to pull off, depending on my system, an activity report. And I can then cross-reference that alongside care plans. So someone could tick and say, this action's complete. And I can go, great, let me have a look at the activity record. Actually, this person loves sewing, knitting, and gardening, and they've been playing bingo every single day. So their care plan says they hate bingo. So actually, no, this action isn't complete. And this is the reason why I'm saying it's not complete. Where have we found barriers? Why haven't we been able to put that in place? Not blaming people. I just want to understand, actually, why do we think this action's complete when it's not, and how we're then going to monitor it? So yeah, it might be, Pete, reviewing those records and having copies of them as part of that action plan process. Chris has just come saying open communication, sharing testimonials from parents or guardians, etc., so staff can clearly see the difference we make helps to empower staff and evidence the differences we are making to people's lives and evidence throughout monthly key working sessions. 100%. 100%. Have a quality progress board. Share on your quality progress board the actions that you've managed to complete and how we're embedding them and the impact that it's having. we always forget impact. What impact has it had on people? I love those ideas, Chris. Absolutely love them. My God, Mark, we have got 7 minutes left of the show and we still have 3 points to get through. So we've already spoken about this a little bit, but how do we keep those actions alive after completion? So after completion, and we're using the word completion here because, again, just because it's completed doesn't mean it's affected. But just because it's completed doesn't mean it should end. We should be going, right, what did we learn? We've already seen on the action plan we're going to share with you that it's got lessons learned on there. But what worked well? What was harder than expected? What would we do different next time? Everything's a learning outcome. I was in a training session today and they said, do you want to reduce medication errors within your home? And we're all like, yeah, no brainer. Obs, we don't want any medication errors. And she's like, right, okay. Do you want to remove learning experiences from your home? And I was like, no, obs not. We learn from everything. We want to learn all the time. She's like, well, getting rid of medication errors is going to remove learning outcomes for you. You want to be able to locate these errors as much as you can because you're always going to want to learn. Everything is about learning. So actually, actions are about learning as well, and linking those old actions to new improvements. So one of the things our system's really good at is we can link open actions to other things that are ongoing. So actually I can say this action was created 3 months ago, but it's now linked to 15 different areas. So obviously whatever we're doing is not working right now and we need to put a bit more of a focus on this. Or it could be that less is being linked to a certain action. So we can see that things are potentially being embedded and that it's working. It might be that we reopen that action and revisit it because we go, well, actually, we did complete it, but obviously it wasn't effective. So we need to go back to that, reopen it, explain why we've reopened it, and start working on it a little bit more. Mark, keeping actions alive, how are we doing it?
I think for me, I wrote down around lessons learned because I do think that's how we keep them alive. You know, it's how we also evidence with our team around what impact it's had. I did write it down because I thought actually it's probably quite a good show to do one on because I think lessons learned isn't something that we naturally do well in social care. I think we kind of, because we've got the agenda of the team meeting or supervisions or everything else that's going on, it's kind of an added extra. And there will be providers out there that do it really well, but I think for a lot of teams, it'll be kind of at the end or just like a snippet of an agenda item. Just on the subject of any shows, if there is anything that anybody wants to discuss or wants more information on, do let us know because we're currently building out what the plan of 2026 looks like. So we've got half a year plan, but we've got half a year that we want to bring, things that are beneficial and meaningful to you guys as opposed to what we think you need. In terms of embedding, there's not really too much that you've not spoken about that I can really think about.
I mean, we can link back to what we were saying earlier about those cascading actions where one action that's being completed might lean into another action and continue that action and keep that action alive. So let's use that training example again of the MCAs. 100% of people to be trained on MCAs. Action 1 complete. But the next action now is monitoring this through competency assessments. So I want 100% of competency assessments completed by such and such a date. Perfect, great. But then actually, once we've completed those competency assessments, I want to see actually how many people have achieved competency. And then once I've done that and we've trained everyone and we've got all the competencies, care plans. Let's have a look at those MCA care plans. We've done the training. Let's see the impact. I want to see 100% of MCA care plans having X amount or this, that, in whatever. That action then is kept alive. It might be completed. That very first part of that action might be completed, but actually it's begat a number of actions that we're continuing to work through whilst we're embedding that culture, we're embedding that change. Tina, is it a lesson or a quality enhancement different? Oh, semantics, a good conversation for another show, I think. I think it's really interesting, people's differences. I'm just going on for what she said. But yes, I think a really interesting question that you ask there.
Just quickly, Adam, on the subject of MCAs, I think if you've got a 30-bedded service, as opposed to having around reviewing all MCAs, you might want to break it down into 30 different actions. Just because I think it's very easy to think, oh, I've done it, or whereas if you've got one for each person that needs it, and you might only need 10 of the people that you're supporting need one, actually it's very clear who's been done, who still needs reviewing. And then again, if somebody suddenly goes off sick or if they're on holiday, actually on that tracker, you can say, oh, actually, we need somebody else to pick up this action. You can delegate that out, as opposed to thinking, because again, it goes back to that oversight. Are you going to go back in and check all 30 have been done, not knowing where to start? But yeah, just about breaking it down, especially when it's related to individual staff or, into something, overarching for all the people that you're supporting.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'd love to do that. I can already see people's faces going, oh my God, that means my action plan is going to be like so long. Totally understand it. Totally get it. Again, I use a digital action plan. We can whack a different tag on it. We can minimize it and sort of get it away from there. But yeah, no, really, really, really important. Jonathan's come in saying, I think it's important to consider root cause analysis where possible too. Actions could be created on surface level, but an RCA can drive down deeper as to what other actions you may overlook or not consider. That with investment pay off in the longer run, if that makes sense. It makes 100% sense. And I think we are going to have at least one episode of Back to Basics around root cause analysis, auditing, identifying service quality improvements. So yeah, we're going to take that point, Jonathan, and we'll run with that in another episode. I think it's really, really important that you mentioned that. Especially when a lot of people don't want to get to the root of what has caused that. People just want to blame and go, you failed, that's failed. Actually, where as a process has things failed? And as much as we do or don't know in social care about PSIF is coming from the NHS, which is moving away from that blame culture. So I think all of that sort of stuff's important. And root cause analysis goes further on when we're looking at behaviors, we're looking at antecedents, we're looking at our falls. Yeah, someone's fallen, but actually let's deep dive into why they've fallen. The actual understanding of conducting those RCAs is hugely important, but missing a lot throughout social care. So I think really, really important. Oh my God, can we do it 2 more points and just go slightly over? How do we get our teams fully involved in action planning, Mark?
I think for me, it's communication's key. They need, first of all, the person that's responsible needs to know they're responsible for it and what the remit and what does that look like. I think it's then how we communicate that to our wider team. And I think, I always like to be transparent, and I probably say too much in my role, but I think if everybody knows kind of where they're at, there's no room for, any misunderstandings. But I appreciate that there are things that you can't tell some of your team that you've got to hold back. But I think where possible, be as transparent as possible. What do you hope to achieve? Why? How have we got here? Where are we going to end? That journey. I think if you can keep them regularly updated, keep them involved, give that opportunity for them to ask questions, to have concerns, to, pose different viewpoints. Because I think sometimes, a bit like when you spoke about earlier with the root cause analysis, sometimes you just want to shut that down if somebody's got a different kind of opinion, but actually that's going to enhance that learning. And from that conversation, you might come up with new actions and new ways of doing things. And I think right at the other kind of end of that journey is when you've achieved something, is celebrate that win with your team. Don't let the person that's been responsible for the action take all the glory. Actually, it's a team effort. And again, what does that look like for the team, and what are we now doing? And I think link it back to the values of the organization as well around, in the business plan and the business case that you've got for the short term, the medium and the long term, and actually how that all feeds in. And I think for me, it's around over time evolving your team as a very reactional to actually we want to be a very, lessons, driven organization. We want to be somebody that, or we want to be a team that is evolving all the time. We might go from, A to Z, but Z isn't the end point. Actually, we'll then move on to Roman numerals or whatever. Like, you always want to evolve, and I think if we can adapt our teams to have that mindset, they'll always be feeding information back to you as well.
Yeah, 100%. Tina said about an RCA, PSurf sessions, perhaps. Totally, 100%. PSurf, especially. Jonathan, you're the expert here. Whew, Jonathan, I think you think too highly of us. I'm completely honest. We're all experts in our own fields, but yeah, don't put us on a pedestal, because I will sit there. No, I'm joking. I won't. You're the expert here, but consider how leadership styles influence how action planning is affected by this too. Leadership styles, I believe, would relate to your Back to Basics themes, another episode. Oh, we love a leadership episode. We love leadership conversations. We will have them. But actually bringing it back to tonight's conversation and about how we get our team fully involved in the action planning, your leadership style is very much intrinsic to getting those team members involved. So actually, my action plan states that we need to do this because I've identified this, and these are the problems that I think we need to fix, and I need them being done by now. Okay, but actually, if your team are involved in auditing, if your team are involved in identifying problems, or identifying issues or concerns, you're getting them involved at the very early stages. And we want to lead our teams. We want to trust our teams to lead. We want to trust our teams to identify these things for us. It makes our lives easier. Yeah, we might need to do a bit of validation on it and do some assurance checks. Fine, whatever. We're growing our team. We're supporting them. But if you get them involved at that identifying issues phase, then getting them involved in finding solutions and creating problem-solving ideas is going to be much easier. And then once they're involved in that, because they know what it is that we're going to do to fix these problems, they're going to want to know how we're doing. So they are going to monitor the progress. And then they're going to be going, and look at what we've achieved, and look how we're validating it. And that's going to get them really involved. So yeah, I think your leadership style really will determine how successful your completion of actions are within your service. One last point, and then we've got one more freebie to share with you. And this is how effective action plans reduce pressures on managers. Because, I mean, I'm a sober girly now. I'm like sober 2.5 years. I'm nearly at my 3 chip mark, and I'm dead excited, and I can't wait. Doesn't mean that I don't have pressure. Doesn't mean that I don't feel the demand. And I know managers across the country feel exactly the same pressures. So how do action plans, how does good action planning remove that pressure? Because it won't add work for us. It's just going to remove some of those issues. It's going to remove that noise. It's going to remove that chaos. So action plans to reduce stress, reduces that last minute panic, prevents repeat issues, gives clarity, it gives focus, it supports your inspection/assessment readiness. But for me as well, it also takes away the unknown. The unknown is unnerving. The unknown is anxiety inducing. I don't know what I'm going to find. I don't know what CQC are going to see when they come through these doors. Effective action planning and effective monitoring and embedding of learning outcomes and impact actually takes away some of that anxiety and allows me to focus some of my mental clarity elsewhere. Mark, anything from yourself?
Yeah, no, I think we say that an action, once it's embedded, it shouldn't then pose an issue. But actually, I think look at the positive. Actually, if the same problem keeps resurfacing and resurfacing, you put an action. Obviously, the action plan didn't work. But look at the positive. It's probably showing you something, that there's an issue either with a system, with a process, and you can really dive into that. So I think whilst it's meant to, it might cause you stress in the short term, always try and look at the positive in terms of the long term of what that's trying to tell you. And I think in terms of, it's around delegating. I think we spoke about that earlier. Actually, we all take on so much as managers, and I think some of that is probably a control element, especially as when I put my old registered manager hat on, that you need to know everything in case the CQC walk through the door, or your director wants to know something. You feel like you need to. And I get it. It's really hard to let go of that. And I think action plans really allow you to start delegating some of those smaller responsibilities to your team. But I also think for your team members, they'll enjoy some of that additional responsibility. I think they'll thrive on it. They'll want to do well. They'll want to, impress you as the manager, which then in turn allows you to give them more work. And I think, long-term vision, actually, you want to be able to go away on holiday and switch off your mobile phone. You want to be able to just know that your service is running, and you don't want to be checking emails when you're away. I mean, hypocritical, because I think I've only had one holiday since I stepped into management where I completely turned off the phone. But yeah, we're all there. We don't want to be doing that. We want to be spending time with our family, with our friends. And obviously, the more you delegate, the more you're able to then spend time with the people that you support. You're able to spend time, doing the job that you wanted to do, which is to lead people and to lead a service.
Yeah, I mean, we're managers in care at the end of the day, not firefighters. And again, if I was in a room full of people, I'd say, how many of you feel like firefighters at this moment in time? Because, I just can't get on with what I need to do, because I'm always just fighting problems. I'm just firefighting constantly. Get good action planning embedded, learning outcomes embedded, quality improvement embedded, culture embedded. you're going to stop firefighting. And like Mark says, you're going to be there able to lead your team to where you need them to be and where you want to be, where as a team you want to be. So it's not about compliance, it's about confidence. So confidence in your leadership, confidence in your team, and confidence in the quality of the care you provide. We've got one more freebie that we're going to put up tonight so that you've all got access to it. And we are going to develop, we're in the middle of developing a sort of workbook for team members. So people that you want to upskill, sort of self-reflective practice around action plans, just as a sort of an additional training element for them. We're hoping to get that up and ready for you mid next week, and we will share it out across our channel. So like I say, do give us a follow on our social medias. You'll be able to access it for free. It won't cost you, but it's going to be there to support you. But Mark, our other freebie that we've got before we bid everyone a good night.
Yes, so let me share my screen. So we've got a one-page action checklist. So it's broken down into steps. So step 1 is around your action statement. So everything we've discussed tonight. So why does this need, or what needs to happen? Why does it matter? Who's responsible by when? And then moves into that SMART review, so you can double check the action. Is SMART, is it specific and measurable, relevant, time bound? Broken down, I'm not going to go through everything. You can download this completely for free on our website. And then it obviously takes it down into the monitoring, the plan, how you embed it, validation, and then obviously through to that continuous learning. So actually, for each action, if you want to, you could use this this document to have a checklist of the full A to Z process, so to speak. And it might be that you want to just use this on your really meaty, chunky actions as opposed to some of those smaller ones. But again, if you've got somebody that you want to upskill or you're new to action planning, actually it's a really good tool and a really good checklist just to have, by your side, just to kind of tick off as you go along to make sure that you're covering everything.
Wonderful. And as always, take it, edit it, do what you want. Again, we don't care. It's for free. Knowledge is for free. We don't gatekeep anything here at the Caring View. Even if you just take those action points off that checklist, whack them into a Word document, and you get people to tick them off every time that you do it, or you just want to do spot checks on your actions to make sure that you've got effective action planning embedded, part of your embedding process. You might have an action now to embed actions properly within your services, an action for actions. You never know. This has been the Caring View. We are going back to basics this year. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Really busy chat tonight, which has been lovely. Great seeing everyone's ideas and thoughts. Some learning points for me to take away. I think some really good thoughts going off in the chat, and that book from Tina. I will definitely give that a look for those that missed it. Black Box Thinking by Matthew Syed. We're going to look at Peace Earth. We're going to look at RCA. If there is anything that you think, actually, this will benefit me, it will benefit my teams, can you do a session on that this year? Just let us know. We will get it organized. We'll get some experts involved. This is available to access on YouTube. So if you think, actually, my teams would benefit from listening to this, share this with your teams. We have got no issues with that. Share it with whoever you want. Take away the content, deliver it yourself. Again, doesn't really bother me as long as you're using some of the stuff that we're able to provide you. Absolutely happy. We're not live next week. Next week will be our freebie week, where we send you out our documents and our resources. But we will be back the week after. Forgive me, I'm terrible at thinking of what calendars are. It takes us to the 24th. So we're going to be back 24th of February, 7:30, as usual, across all of our platforms. Subscribe to YouTube. More important this year, not because we want the numbers on YouTube, although that would be great. It's just going to keep you up to date with when our episodes are going live. And like I say, give us a follow on our socials. But until then, Mark, thank you so much. Welcome back.
Yeah, that's good to be back. Yeah, it's been far too long, but I'm really looking forward to this year. And apologies, we've gone over the hour mark. We will get better at restricting to 60 minutes. But yeah,
we've been saying that for 5 years, Mark. I don't know if
we're on a mission.
Wonderful, everybody. Yes, after Valentine's Day, Pete. So happy Valentine's, everybody. Whatever you do for Valentine's, I don't celebrate it myself. But for whatever you do, enjoy your Valentine's. And we will see you on the 24th after Pancake Day as well. The Pancake Day is the 17th. Enjoy your pancakes next week, everybody. Enjoy those pancakes, and we will see you back here live 7:30 on the 24th of February. Take care.
See you later.
Thank you for watching The Caring View. You can catch up on any episodes you've missed over on our YouTube channel or our website. www.thecaringview.co.uk. If this helped, share it with your team and subscribe for more. See you next time.